During this video, I'd like to talk about what I've been learning lately about mindset and how it's helping me heal from anxiety and depression. I'm only going to be able to scratch the surface, but I'm sure I'll talk again on the subject. The habit of thought is what creates our mindset. To change your patterns of thought is as challenging as starting a new habit or breaking an addiction. To change our mindset, our life, or whatever we desire, whether it be to overcome anxiety, to feel a sense of worth, or to accept love, or the abundant possibilities available to us, we must begin with our beliefs. Our mindset directly affects us and our personal worlds, no doubt about it. Everything begins with what we are allowing ourselves to believe, what beliefs we are integrating into our life through thoughts, speech, and actions. Whether we believe we are unworthy, that something is impossible, or that something is not available to us, all these beliefs will cause certain emotions that cause certain thoughts, certain words to come out of our mouths, causing us to take certain actions that can all be led back to the intangible belief we took upon ourselves. Beliefs can be downright lies. They can be caused by traumatic or less than ideal experiences that leave us with subconscious beliefs we put in place in order to keep ourselves safe and protected, but at the same time, putting up walls that block us from experiencing the highs of life and all that is available to us. True love, superabundance, a healthy self-worth, or joy and freedom from depression, to name a few. The thing is, without deep inner examination, we may never know the core beliefs causing us to miss out on our best life. But there are plenty of clues and triggers if you give yourself patience and time to piece the puzzle together. For a long time, I thought my sadness wasn't caused by any particular thing, and that I was just mental or crazy. Funny thing, the answers were always in plain view. I just didn't know the perspective to look at them that would enable healing. That's where mindset comes in, literally changing our brain to perceive reality without the pre-existing beliefs that blind us. A good example would be denial, which I was prone to do in the past. I never realized the truth of my past experiences that, quote, traumatized me, because I never stopped to allow myself to process those things in a healthy way, and not just process them by feeling the feelings, but by recognizing the, quote, wrongness of the situation, what beliefs it was causing me to believe, and my specific role in the situation, as well as, may I add, the most important ingredient, grace, empathy for who I was back then when the incident happened, who maybe did not have the perspective or judgment that I do currently. Grace and acceptance are so foundational to healing, which is the opposite of what I started out with. I started out by beating myself up for not being who I wanted to be and resisting any painful feelings. I thought I would share about my journey with anxiety and depression because I've learned a lot and maybe it could help someone else. I'm a very sensitive person, so alongside feeling the highest highs of happiness and excitement for life, I also feel the extreme opposite, which used to be at times a full-on depression. Although I still experience all emotions, getting depressed sometimes, getting triggered and having panic attacks, or feeling anxiety for long periods of time, I've come to a place where I'm finally feeling empowered and feeling better for longer spurts, and I'd like to share that process that brought me here. It's been a long process, and it will continue throughout all of my life. At first, when I decided I wanted to change, I thought I'd be better in 1 month. Then I thought maybe 2, then maybe a year, 2 years, 3. Finally, I realized it's a lifelong journey and there is much to be enjoyed along the way. Realizing that I didn't have to be, quote, better, automatically made me feel better, because it gave me some relief by taking the pressure off and helped me disassemble the belief that I needed to be perfect to be loved. My husband helped greatly in this process, as he has in most all of my healing. His actions have taught me so much about true love, forgiveness, and grace, because he always kept loving me when I wasn't perfect or I messed up. He taught me what true acceptance looks like, and I started finding grace for myself too. One of the first things that I learned alongside giving myself grace was that you can never truly be rid of anxiety completely. It's a natural biological survival mechanism that every single human on the planet experiences in some form. The things that trigger us may always trigger us. It's not about getting rid of them. It's just about handling and responding to them in an empowering way that doesn't cause your life to fall apart. Anxiety should not run your life. Unfortunately, when someone says, I have anxiety, that probably means they feel bad more than they feel good, or that their good feelings are tainted by negative thoughts or emotions. I'd say that for a while, I wasn't even aware that I was anxious. I thought it was completely normal to feel the way that I did, because it was normal for me, but certainly not ideal. Ignorance has always had positive aspects, but awareness or acceptance will set you on a path to be able to deal with things that are bothering or stressing you in a more solutions oriented manner. Accepting yourself from a blind place will not empower you, and at the same time, you're leaving a lot of your life on the table. So at first, I was learning that I was unhappy with who I was, which is okay. It made things more painful at first, but it was a necessary step. There is a lot of freedom in accepting yourself exactly how you are, even from a place of ignorance. But once I started noticing that I had anxiety and noticing that I didn't actually want it, I started not to accept myself. Indeed, causing even more low self-worth and depression. The next step was learning to accept myself from that place of awareness. Accepting yourself becomes more challenging when you think something is wrong with you and that you need to fix something. It wasn't actually until I accepted my new awareness of myself that I was able to move on and truly start healing. I had to accept that even though I wasn't who I wanted to be, nothing was wrong with me. And that even though I wanted to act and live differently, nothing needed to be fixed. I had to accept what I did not want, to the extent that if it stayed indefinitely, I would still be okay and still want to live life. It is that place of resistance that I stayed in for so long that makes change so hard, almost impossible. In fact, what change you do manage will only be temporary, because you're still holding on to the beliefs that created the issues in the first place. Resistance only creates more uncertainty and puzzles, because you're not opening your mind up to see from all perspectives. And a different perspective is key. Changing that mindset is key. You would think that it's a little counterintuitive to accept the parts of you that you don't like, the parts of you that you're trying to change. But until you realize that you can't try to change and that you don't have to change, does change actually begin. Indeed, I was trying too hard and trying too many tactics from a place of I must fix this. In fact, I pretty much tried every tactic. I used to keep tactic journals with tabs that I could turn to remind me of what I should do in certain situations. I used to blame my diet, I would blame my exercise, only to be discouraged when I would change those external things, but nothing inside of my head would change because all the negative beliefs were still intact. I was playing the victim, believing the negative thoughts were coming from outside of me, being spoken into my head, as if it were spiritual warfare that I could fight off but never get rid of. Then a pivotal truth came into my awareness. My husband is the one who told me, and at first I didn't believe it. He told me that I create my thoughts. I was stunned. I tried for a long time to make him understand that I had no control over my thoughts and that they would just come to me as they do, and I had no choice but to think them. Little did I realize I was creating the negative stuff myself by allowing myself to believe the thoughts were true or letting them take me further into a new negative thoughts that correspond with the last. It was the biggest game changer when I realized that I could control where my thoughts led me. It wasn't necessarily that I have control of my thoughts. Maybe I couldn't control the thought from arising in the first place. But I had the choice to decide if I wanted to believe it as true or recognize its phony reality and deliberately decide on the next thought that follows. Realizing that every thought we think may not be true and that we can let our thoughts pass like clouds around us, experiencing our feelings, and then choose where we let our emotions take us. That we are the ones in control over every single thought, and we are the ones who decide if we will let it bring us down or turn it around and choose a different thought. Choosing to elevate our emotions by digging into good feelings more often and for longer periods of time. This helped me integrate a pivotal tool to watch what I say out loud. Because the words we speak have a direct effect on our lives, because they are created by the thoughts we think, and those thoughts are created by the beliefs that we hold. Because, for example, at one point I believed that I was only worthy of love, life, or to be accepted if I was productive and proving myself, if I was valuable in a tangible sense. So I kept thinking, oh, I better get this done, I better prove I'm capable in this area. Then I would think, I better hurry because there's only so much time in a day. And I would try to control everything, wanting to control what people thought of me or control time itself. But I didn't really find breakthroughs until I gave up the control and found a place of surrender and trust. Because a lot of my anxiety was tied up in my self esteem and the need to control others' perception of myself, as well as the fear of the future and the need to control circumstances, as well as believing in conditional love that I had to earn and continue earning. Healing became learning how to find my true worth outside of circumstances and conditions. Making space to heal is vitally important. For me personally, it began with rest and self care because I was moving so fast as a way to drown what I needed and distract myself from constant doing, aka productivity, so that I didn't have to face or look at my worth because I was fearful of finding that I was worthless outside of tangible proof because that was the belief that I was holding. Fear is always at the foundation of negative beliefs that we take on. Everyone will experience personal differences in the core beginnings and foundations of their anxiety or depression. Mine was always a lack-based fear. Lack of love, lack of control, lack of time, and lack of worth were the biggest ones for me. Let me explain. And for your own purposes, realize that much of the clarity around these anxieties came from finding the core belief causing them, which I found primarily from finding their source, where they began in time based on my memories, how they started and what caused them to start, and what I was trying to protect and keep my heart safe from. First, I'll explain my experience with love and self esteem, which are so closely connected. Although not 100% of the time, but when triggered, I felt a lack of love to some extent, either dramatically unloved or a fear of losing love. In fact, I had created a wall to love as a protection mechanism, although I did not know I had subconsciously done this, but I could feel the effects. I could not accept the love that was given to me. I couldn't let it seep into me. If I experienced love or security in the moment, that was lovely, but when the external proof of love was gone, I would become fearful, as if I hadn't accepted it as true in the first place. It all came down to my mind, that mindset based on beliefs. Basically, sometimes I did not feel loved if I was not being shown love all the time. It was simply my ability to perceive it and hold on to the love, even when it wasn't tangibly present through the action of others. It all came down to if I could believe I was loved, despite having external proof through my situations and circumstances. It came down to believing the love I was shown and believing I was lovable. Part of the love I could or couldn't accept was tied to my ability to love myself. Because if you don't love yourself, when someone else shows you love, it actually causes you to feel even more unlovable because you are arguing with the love coming your way. Silently inside of yourself, you're saying, I don't deserve it, or they don't really mean it. Whereas the healing comes in all areas of anxiety when you believe the truth about yourself or your situation despite the external things that show up, because you look for the proof of the beliefs you hold. That's something that Kathy Heller said. You look for the proof of the beliefs you hold. I also heard someone say that if you can be detached from the positive opinions of others, then it will be easier to be detached from their negative opinions too. Then little did I realize this actually helped me to detach from my own opinions of myself, such as those self-degrading ones and that inner critic. Furthermore, if you love yourself, then you know you are loved and lovable, even though it may or may not be shown to you by those around and outside of you. So then, if and when you aren't shown love in a way that you can understand, it doesn't have that deep effect of pain on you as it would have in the past when you held the beliefs that weren't serving you. Interesting enough, the walls we put up keep us from this pain too, and we don't have to do all the inner work after all. But remember, the inner work is not just to relieve the pain of situations, but to open us up to the abundance of love and life available to us when we do not shoo it away, block it, or say that it isn't real. To experience true enlightened life is why we embark on this very challenging journey. Now, about the need to control and perception of time, which are so connected. Anxiety arose when I felt a lack of time or lack of control. I was an excessive planner and didn't want to accept when it wasn't going my way. But acceptance and surrender are the choices that lead to freedom. Of course, we would feel insecure when trying to control what is out of our hands. But releasing resistance and embodying trust will allow us to start to believe in the perfection of the future already laid out for us, to believe that it leads to a place of beauty in the end. Releasing is so important when it comes to dealing with anxiety. Releasing resistance makes space for acceptance. And acceptance leads to a new perspective. Perhaps a perspective that gives you the feelings of self-worth or security in uncontrollable situations, despite external proofs that your old system of beliefs would have focused upon. Indeed, it is a mind game. Where does your focus reside, based on the habits of thought you've practiced for years? And what mindset shifts will you integrate for healing? It's really about getting past yourself, past your circumstances, and past others' opinion, into a new reality that you feel anything that you desire. The truth of knowing that I can feel any which way I choose has been what has given me the momentum and growth in the long run, which all began with wanting a feeling of peace and knowing that peace is always available if I can simply tune into the presence of peace. Although I had to learn that we cannot just jump from depression to peace instantly, but rather we must work our way up. It's a process requiring grace and patience. Beginning at depression, we must move towards a feeling of worry, maybe anger, maybe indifference, then boredom, sliding up what others have called the emotional scale, all the way up to hope, to optimism, to gratitude, to love, to joy, or whichever order works best to rise up from a low place. Because if you cannot feel peaceful or empowered before your anxiety is gone, you will never really find yourself in a peaceful place. We imagine we'll feel better once it's gone, but it's true we can choose to feel peaceful, at least choose an emotion on the way to peace, beforehand. And actually, until you feel these feelings beforehand, will you even begin to move up the emotional scale towards your desires. You have to feel what it would be like before it happens. These days, I continue to learn and gain a deeper, more clear understanding of myself and focus on only identifying with what I desire for myself in the future now, and not with any negative patterns of belief from the past. This slow, gradual change through constant focus and awareness of our thoughts is what will rewire our brains and overwrite the old programs, so that one day we choose the path we want to take without even thinking about it, and refuse the slippery slope with ease, becoming familiar with the unfamiliar new reality, and letting the old familiar feelings fall away. Knowing that what is unfamiliar will trigger feelings of fear, but also knowing we are empowered to push through and continue the hard work of becoming the best version of ourselves, even beyond our imagination. The process of healing will always look different for every single person, but I encourage you that if you've not looked at your beliefs and the things that those beliefs are causing you to do or think or act, to start there, because that's where you will find the most clarity. I would also encourage you to give yourself the most enormous amount of patience and grace, because healing takes a lot of time and you have to go through a lot of hard stuff to get there. But if you give yourself the space to start to understand, it will be worth it in the long run. Just understand that you will backslide and you won't always be progressing further, and that is totally okay.